Hey, mountain lions. We talked last time about, well, we didn't talk. I always forget. I asked you to respond about feeling just like Roz did with worry, confusion, and guilt. And your answers were really, really great to hear about why she was feeling that way. It's because she really does care about the Sharif family. Um, and she's confused, right? Like, do I stay? Do I go back? So we know that in her heart, Bright Bill is more important to her. So we know that she's going to want to go back. So thanks for sharing your thoughts on that. Chapter 48 is called The Return. So let's jump in and see how much we can read today. All right. The robot's feelings of worry and confusion and guilt went away as soon as she heard her son's voice echoing across the farm. Ma, we're back! Brightbill's flock appeared above the pasture, flapping and honking and laughing. They glided down to Roz, and Brightbill took his place on his mother's shoulder. I told you we'd keep your son out of trouble, squawked Loudwing. Thank you, everyone. The robot spoke in her most cheerful voice. It's so good to see you all again. The cows trotted over, grinning and happily mooing to the geese, while the herd and the flock caught up with each other. Roz and Brightbill slipped away to speak privately. What's the plan, Ma? Asked Brightbill. The plan is simple, said Roz. Tonight, under the cover of darkness, I will run away from the farm, and then you and I will begin our journey home. Chapter 49, The Goodbyes. That evening was full of sad goodbyes. The first goodbye was between the flock and their young leader. The other geese wanted to help Roz and Brightbill get home, but the journey would be dangerous, and Brightbill refused to put the rest at risk. He demanded they return to the island without him. The geese could feel their instincts urging them onward, and they knew Roz and Brightbill would look after each other, so they said their goodbyes and took off into the night sky. The next goodbye was between the robot and the cows. Roz marched into the pasture one last time as the herd gathered around. I guess this is it, said the robot. Thank you all for being so kind to me. Annabelle sniffled and said, I really hate goodbyes, but I'm glad you're going home where you belong. I just wish there was some way that I could be helpful. Actually, there is something you can do. Roz unsnapped a pocket of her tool belt and took out the transmitter. You can hold on to this for me. Hopefully, it will take a few days for Mr. Sharif to realize I am gone. Annabelle smiled as the robot gently took the small device under her collar. Lily and the other calves suddenly swarmed around Roz and nuzzled her legs. They all had tears in their eyes. Tess wanted to lighten the mood, but she couldn't think of anything funny to say. The other cows called out to their friend, We'll miss you, Roz. Get home safely. Don't forget about us. Roz waved to the herd. She said a silent goodbye to all the farm machines parked in the shed. Then she followed the driveway out to the field with Brightbill on her shoulder and the children at her side. This last goodbye was the hardest of all. Everyone was quiet as they walked through the silvery moonlight, past rows and rows of sprouting crops, and out to the farthest corner of the farthest field. Roz turned and faced Jaya and Jad. She looked past them, back to the distant lights of the farm buildings. I have prepared the farm for my departure, said Roz. It will take care of itself for a while, but not forever. We can manage things, at least until we get another robot, said Jad. This place won't be the same without you, but we'll be okay. What will you tell your father, said Roz. That's for us to worry about, said Jaya. You just worry about getting home. Roz glanced down at the tool belt strapped across her chest. Would you like this back? No, we would not, said Jad. It was a gift just for you, said Jaya. The girl pulled her brother and robot into a big, tight hug. Beneath the sounds of the crickets were the sounds of children crying. How will we know that you've made it home, said Jad. We need to know how your story ends, said Jaya. The robot muttered some animal words to her son, and then said to the children, If a goose ever visits this farm and presents you with a feather, you will know that I am home. The children smiled through their tears and waited for their friends to leave, but the robot didn't move. More than anything, Roz wanted to go home, and yet she was conflicted. She cared about this family and farm, and now she was abandoning them. The robot lurched forward, then backward, again and again, as her brain struggled with the thoughts and feelings. Finally, the children gave her a gentle push that she needed. Roz, we order you to run away. And the robot did as she was told. I love this picture. All of the things Roz loves. Chapter 50, The Free Robot. At long last, Roz was free. But as she ran away from Hilltop Farm, she didn't feel free. She felt something more like fear. She feared being seen, captured, destroyed. She feared for her son's safety. So Roz camouflaged herself. She avoided the fields and kept to the trees, with Brightbill as her guide. She carefully crept north through farm country. The wild robot's long journey home had begun. Chapter 51, The Airship. I'll show you it before I read. We've seen that before at the end of The Wild Robot. The sun was up and our friends were on the move. They were traveling quickly and quietly along a narrow strip of forest that cut between vast crop fields. If not for that nagging fear of being spotted, it would have been a very pleasant hike. Wind whispered through the leaves, insects hummed and chirped, farm machines rumbled in the distance. And then there came a new sound, a buzzing sound. Our friends hid in the underbush as an airship rose up from the horizon ahead of them. It was a sleek white triangle flying low and fast. Roz adjusted her vision and saw familiar robots gazing out the front windows. Recco 1, 2, and 3 had been destroyed back on the island. Perhaps these robots, or Recco 4, 5, and 6. They're flying toward Hilltop Farm, said Brightbill. We need to keep moving, said Roz. The airship disappeared to the south, and the travelers continued north at a faster pace. They hurried through more strips of forest, passing squirrels and birds, groundhogs, and other friendly critters. But the robot and Goose had no time to chat. Later that day, the trees came to an abrupt end. Roz and Brightbill stood at the forest edge and faced an ocean of wheat. The wheat was still young and green. It gently waved in the wind and spread out as far as they could see. What should we do? Asked Brightbill. We need to keep moving, said Roz, staring at the plains. But I'm not safe in the open. There must be more trees out there somewhere. I'll take a look, said Brightbill, and he launched himself skyward. Up, and up he went, then finally dove back to his mother. There are trees in that direction, said Brightbill, pointing. It's far, about 30 minutes at top speed. Then we better get started, said Roz. Our friends burst from the underbrush, and the robot sprinted through the field, the Goose flying by her side. Roz had to concentrate to keep from slipping in the soft, muddy soil, but she stomped on, and far ahead, another line of trees slowly climbed into view. Brightbill swooped up and out of sight as his mother kept running. Then he lowered back down beside her and squawked, "The airship is returning." Behind them, a tiny white triangle rose up from the horizon. It was growing larger and louder by the second. If Roz was seen, her newfound freedom, her life would be over. She couldn't take any chances. Go on without me, hollowed the robot, and she dropped down to the ground. Brightbill hoped his mother knew what she was doing, and he flew on without her. Just the chaos of this house. 1 second. My goodness. Brightbill hoped his mother knew what she was doing, and he flew on without her. Once he reached the trees, he perched himself on a branch and looked back. His mother had vanished. The airship, however, seemed to fill the sky. Its shadow flitted across the ground where Roz had just been, but the ship didn't see where Roz had been. It detected the electronic signal, so it kept going, racing above the trees and over to the next field. Its engine noise gradually faded, and it disappeared to the north. "You can come out, Ma," squawked Brightbill from his branch. A column of wheat stood up in the field. The robot had rushed her camouflage, and it had crumbled off her body when she started to march. As she approached the trees, Roz looked at Brightbill in the branches and said, "We need to keep moving." Chapter 52, The Scout. Would the airship return? Were the Reccos hunting for Roz? Was it only a matter of time before she was caught? It was impossible to know. So our friends tried not to worry about these troubling questions, and they continued sneaking through farm country, one wooded area to the next. Roz wore a disguise of mud and weeds and bark. At the first hint of trouble, she would freeze and instantly become a rotten old tree trunk. Then she'd wait for Brightbill to tell her it was safe to move on. If there were humans or robots nearby, she might have to wait for hours. Back on the island, Brightbill had practiced flying like hawks and owls, sparrows and vultures. He couldn't fly exactly like those others, but he was an expert at diving, swooping, darting, and soaring. Now he used those skills to secretly scout out the countryside for his mother. He'd fly up from her shoulder and return a short time later to share his findings. We're coming to another farmhouse. Let's avoid it by cutting across this field. Beyond the trees is a highway. Stay here. I'll tell you when it's safe to cross. Straight ahead is a small town, but I can lead you around it. Brightbill's advice was always good, and Roz always followed it. And together, the travelers safely made their way through farm country. Last one. Farm country, chapter 53. During their travels, our friends passed every kind of farm imaginable. Some farms grew crops in vast fields and orchards. Others grew crops in great glimmering greenhouses. Some farms let their animals graze through open pastures. Others kept their animals confined in small enclosures. Some farms had old-fashioned barns and sheds, while others had modern laboratories that made meat, eggs, and milk without any animals at all. There seemed to be an infinite number of ways to produce food for humans. The farms were teeming with robot workers, and Roz couldn't resist spying on them as she carefully slunk past. The robots worked the fields and machines and livestock, their bodies shining in the sun, shimmering in the heat. This must have been how Roz looked back on Hilltop Farm. Were any of the robots like her? Were any of them quietly dreaming of escape? Or were they all just mindless machines content with their place in the world? I don't know. I would wonder. I forgot to show you this cute picture of Brightbill, the scout. So they're on their way. Holy moly. They're stressed, right? There's lots of craziness going on. And the Reccos, are they really looking for Roz? I don't know. That's up for you guys to decide what you think. And then hopefully we'll find out as they keep going on their journey. The question that I want to ask you all is that it's kind of funny how the roles have switched, right? Usually parents are giving their children advice, but this time Roz is listening to Brightbill. He's giving his mom advice about how to stay safe and things like that. So I want you to think about a piece of advice that you've learned, something that's taught you some lesson in life. Maybe it's from your adults at home. Maybe it's from, maybe a friend has taught you something. But I want you to think, what piece of advice have you learned that's been really helpful to you? It also could be from a book, right? We learn lots of lessons from the big ideas that authors teach us. So what lesson has been taught to you by somebody that you can share with us? I can't wait to hear, and we'll see you next time.